let's see here. I don't see you on the page. Okay, so I got to make this live. Just I got a little bookkeeping work here to do to make this live on Facebook. Okay, we're live on Facebook, and now I've got to fix YouTube here, and then we'll get started on this journey. Okay, that's that, and one more step, and we'll be ready to rock and roll here.
You.
Okay, excellent. So my special guest today is Stefano Bollani. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Stefano. How are you?
How are you? I'm very well, thank you. Good evening to everybody.
And
God
you
bless.
are in Italy. Where are you in Italy, my friend?
Actually, I'm in Tuscany. Close to the
Tuscany.
seaside, close to the seaside. It's Lido di Camaiore. Very small town and very hot weather and the sea.
Now, is that in southern Italy?
No, actually, it's in the middle. No, it's
in the
almost
middle.
where Florence is.
Ah,
But
how
on
far?
the seaside. It's
How?
100 kilometers from Florence, and so that's the favorite place for all the people from Tuscany to go when it's good weather.
Ah,
See?
and how far are you from Rome?
I'm about 3 hours and a half by car, and actually Rome is the town I used to live. I'm here in Lido di Camaiore to meet my parents. So this is my parents' piano. Actually, it's an
Really?
upright piano, but it's a good one.
Is that the Is that the piano you played when you were a young man?
No, actually not. Well, I think we took this piano for my daughter because my daughter is also playing the piano, so this is for her mainly. She's often visiting my parents and she can practice, you know.
Ah, so is that the town that you grew up in?
No.
Where did you grow up?
That's a complicated story, actually. I was born in Milano and I was raised up in Alba and then in Florence, and then I don't like being in the same place for a long time. So usually I'm always changing my address.
Well, that's a good way to stay away from the authorities,
Yeah,
certainly.
It's a good way, exactly. I'm an
So,
escapist.
so when you were a young man, were your parents musical? Was there a piano in the household?
No, actually not. But I started telling my parents I wanted to be a pop singer when I was 5 years old. So they proposed me to learn an instrument first. And just because, my voice wasn't ready to take singing lessons. So I started to play the piano because one day I thought I would comp my voice, comp my singing. And I'm still thinking that, sometimes I'm singing in my records, but I'm still looking forward for becoming a pop singer in the future.
A pop singer in the future? Okay, so why
When
did
I'll be
you
an
want to be...
adult.
Pardon?
When I will be adult, not now.
When you grow up.
Yeah, exactly.
So who were these voices? Who were these singers that you heard that you wanted to emulate?
First, it was an Italian one, Adriano Celentano. Then came Renato Carosone, which probably you remember. Renato Carosone was a piano player from the 50s. He used to sing and play and wrote songs like this one. Tuo fa l'americano, americano, americano. Sentame chi lo fa fare. Tu vuoi vivere alla moda, ma se bevi whisky and soda, o ti senti disturbato, tu ballo rock and roll. It was a kind of rock and roll and jazzy thing, but with a Neapolitan tradition of, of melody. So I fell in love with the guy, and because he was singing and playing the piano at the same time, and that was my idol. And then I brought him a letter, and he answered me with some advices, and he told me, just man, whatever you want to do in your life, learn the blues, because that's the basis for everything. It was surprising answer. I saw your face, Brett. It was the same face I did because I didn't know what the blues was. I was 11 years old at the time. So I went out and bought my blues and jazzy records, and then that's where it started. I was playing classical piano, and then I fell in love with jazz music and improvisation.
Ah, and when did your parents get the piano so you could learn how to play the piano?
Well, when I was 6 years old, I had another piano, yeah. I grew up with the piano, you know. I started playing the piano same time I was starting doing maths, and I'm better at the piano than in maths, of course.
Well, there's a connection between math and music. A lot of mathematicians are pianists, so
Yeah,
who knows?
you're right, but I don't know so many pianists which are mathematicians, you know. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it probably has to do with the fact that we look for inspiration and we erroneously think that numbers has nothing to do with inspiration, but they do, of course.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, did you watch television to see the music? Did you listen to the radio? Did your parents have phonograph records? Where did you get the content from?
Well, my father was a music fan. He loved the Fats Domino, Little Richard, and Jerry Lee Lewis. So these were the first piano players I had in my house. And then I discovered ragtime. And then, as I told you, after Renato Carusone's letter, I went to jazz and I discovered immediately Oscar Peterson, which I thought he was two piano players. I thought it was a piano duet, Oscar and Peterson. So I was surprised when somebody told me it was just one guy, you know. And I was also surprised because of the ragtime, because I had this long playing with Joshua Rifkin playing ragtime, but I was wrong, and I used to listen to it with the 45, how do you say that? 45 turns. How do you call that?
Yeah,
So
45.
the result was something like that. And I thought that was ragtime. I was 9 years old at the time. So I started trying to play that fast. I tried to develop the technique, necessary technique to play that. And then one day my father came in and told me, because, you know, I was listening always to the same record. It was just that record. He came in and he told me, you know, you got to be careful. This is the way you should listen to that. And it was like, and I was so bored, Brett. It was like, oh man, I don't like it. I prefer it that way. So that's where it started. It started playing very fast and a bit older, you know. I was in love with Oscar Peterson, Tatum, you know, that guys, those guys.
Were you self-taught or did you have a teacher?
No, I started being trained in classical music, and then I entered in the conservatory in Florence. And I got graduated, even if I always thought I want to be a jazz piano player. I don't want to be a classical piano player. At the time, I was very clear. My choice was very clear.
Ah, what was it about jazz? Why were you
Improvisation.
attracted to jazz? Improvisation.
Improvisation, and then I started playing with other musicians when I was 15. And as you know, Brett, the main thing is you're improvising with other people you don't even really know. So you're developing a language and you're entering into a spiritual communication. At the time, I was not using those words, of course, but now I can tell it was a kind of spiritual connection beyond words with people which was older than me, much older. I was playing with people who was in the 30s or 40s, and then I started playing with Enrico Rava, and it's 20, no, how long? It's 40 years older than me, 30 something. And that spiritual connection, I think, is the most interesting thing, because you got this language and you can communicate so easily, and it's astonishing.
Well, one of the things I love about jazz is that spiritual communication that exists with a group of musicians, especially musicians who have worked together for a while, because part of this involves listening when you play with other people, but there's a certain magic that happens when people play together over a few weeks, a few months, even a few years, that 5 musicians become one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's magic.
And that's the main thing. I think that was the main thing while I was listening to Charlie Parker or Miles. I thought, wow, this is really a sound, a wall of sound. It's just one person, one musician.
So how did you find out about all these jazz artists when you were a teenager?
I started collecting records. Whatever I found. It was Fats Navarro. Okay, I'll take this one. I don't know who he is. It was like they had 30 jazz records at the shop close to my place, and I bought them all. So I started listening to Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson, all the greats, because they only had 30 titles. So it was just Art Blakey and all the main thing from the 50s, I would say. So I fell in love with bebop and hard bop at the beginning, and then as I was turning 18, I started listening to all kinds of music. So I started love some rock music, fell in love with Frank Zappa and the King Crimson, fell in love with Prokofiev and Poulenc and Satie and Milhaud and Ravel, Debussy, a lot of music. And from that moment on, I'm not dividing the music into genres, in my head, because it's not useful for inspiration. It's useful to talk about that later.
Yeah. I don't like it when people pigeonhole music, because when you describe music, it's not like one specific thing. It's many things, really. And that word jazz, unfortunately, those of us who know jazz know that it could be anything from Stan Getz playing Desafinado to John Coltrane playing Ascension. It's a big universe.
Big.
And sadly, many people have this idea of what jazz is based on something they heard that they may or may not like.
Yeah.
And that's always been the challenge of those of us who are into jazz, to try to bring more people into it and say, wait a minute, give it a chance. Try this, try this. You might not like John Coltrane, but you may love Charlie Parker.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to mention, when you said you heard Oscar Peterson for the first time and you thought it was two pianists, I once did an interview with the pianist Hank Jones, who was a wonderful, great pianist who passed away several years ago. And he told me the story about when he was a teenager, he was at someone's apartment, and in the next room, someone was playing a recording by Art Tatum, and he said he thought there were two pianists. He could not believe it was one person. So when you talk about someone with the technical proficiency of Art Tatum or Oscar Peterson, it's like two people as one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really remarkable.
But actually, my first jazz piano teacher, whose name was Luca Flores from Firenze, immediately understood that I was in love with virtuosity. And he immediately brought me Bill Evans' record, the Village Vanguard Sessions. First, I was so bored, Brett, you cannot imagine. It was like, oh, wow, but that's not what I mean. I don't want to play like that, I'm bored. It took me some time, and it took me also other musicians to play with. I entered in a project where they wanted me to play the Bill Evans trio thing while I was 15, 16 years old. So I practiced, and then I discovered the world, and then it was the beginning for a lot of other piano players. It opened the duo, Oscar Peterson and Bill Evans. They opened a door to a world of piano players. There are so many, so usually I don't even know how many to name.
One thing I've always loved about jazz is that each musician has their own voice. Like, I've been listening for many years. I can hear like a phrase or two or three notes, and I can identify pretty quickly. That's McCoy Tyner. That's Herbie Hancock. That's Oscar Peterson. As a musician, as a working musician, as a professional musician, how have you developed your own sound?
I have no idea. I do think I just listen to really a lot of music, not only piano players, of course, singers, mainly, I would say singers, because I'm interested in the way they sound, rhythmically speaking. Just to give you an example, Joao Gilberto is one of my favorite singers of all time because I love the sound and the rhythm is using to sing. So just listening to a lot of music and just playing with other musicians, then it's coming. You don't really have to force that. It's like forcing inspiration. You can't force inspiration. You have to let it go, and let yourself go and see what comes from that source that nobody knows where it is, but a lot of people knows there is somewhere, and we call it morphogenetic field or Akashan register, or we call it spirits, or we call it dead composers talking to me, or we call it God, our own God. But it's a different name for something mysterious, which is inspiration. And while you're improvising, you're always trying to connect with that.
Yes, I hear you. It's something that doesn't happen overnight. This is a lifetime pursuit. I had a conversation recently with a great alto sax player named Gary Bartz, who's in his 70s, and he said to me, this is a man who's been studying all of his life, very serious about the music. He said, I need another lifetime to really learn how to play this music.
Yeah. I would say the same thing, yeah.
So when did you realize that you wanted to be a professional musician?
It never occurred to me that I could do another job, because actually I never thought I was going to work in my life while I was a kid. No way, man. No way, they're not getting to me. No. I didn't want to work, so I thought I'll be a musician or a writer or an actor, but nothing which has to do with a job or a work. This doesn't mean, you surely know, this doesn't mean I never have to do things I don't like to. I do a lot of things I don't like, but the main thing is that I'm doing all these things to go and perform live for an audience, the music, and which is fantastic. It's not a job. You remember, talking about anecdotes, Count Basie used to say hello to the audience, and talking about the band, he used to say, we are so glad to be here for you tonight, but we are playing for free. But we want a lot of money for the road we took with the van from Cincinnati or whatever. And I think that's a wise idea, because playing is for free. But the musician's day is a difficult day, because you have to travel and go and practice and whatever.
Yeah, it's life on the road is challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging. Once you
Yeah.
get used to it, it's okay. And I have to say, I really love it. And I love when I'm not doing it. So it's a perfect relation now.
Yeah, a friend of mine who's done a lot of touring said, I don't get paid to play, I get paid to travel.
Exactly.
Yeah, certainly. So you're 18 years old. Did you leave home? Did you start working as a pianist? Tell me something about your life when you got to be 18 years old and you graduated from school.
Yeah, well, actually, I started playing with a lot of different musicians, because at the time I was involved also in tour with some famous Italian pop singers. I was playing keyboards. That was not my kind of music, but I did it because it was a challenge to play in front of a big audience, to play music in a professional way. So it was really interesting. I did it for 3 years, and then I met Enrico Rava. When I was 23, I met Enrico Rava, and he took me with him to play in duo, in a quartet with a symphonic orchestra, making records for ECM, making records for La Bleu in France, making records for a Japanese label. And then I met all the most important guys in my career, thanks to Enrico. And I have to say, he gave me a lot of strength in my possibilities. Just to tell you one thing, I was playing in Paris for the first time with him, and I was really, I'm not a shy guy, but in this case, I was in Paris for the first time. It was my first time abroad, playing jazz, not playing with the pop singer. So my solos were, kind of short solos. I didn't want to disturb Enrico, Michel Benita on bass, and Aldo Romano on drums. And Enrico came to me telling me, why are you playing such short solos? And I told him, I mean, I'm among the greats, so you should play solos, I should come. And he told me, if I wanted you to come, I wouldn't call you. Just fucking play. I think that's the only time in my life with Enrico, we're still playing together, the only time when it was severe with me. And this was the only time he's been severe, so it was a great teaching and of trust. I mean, we are playing together, so I trust you, just play. That's a good thing to tell a musician.
Yeah, there's a famous story Herbie Hancock tells about when he was playing with Miles, and he played something. He there was some kind of chord change, and he did not get the voicings correctly, and to him it didn't sound right. But Miles heard it, and he took his solo in the direction of what Herbie did. And afterwards, he went up to Miles and he kind of apologized. Miles said, "You don't have to apologize. I pay you guys to practice on the bandstand."
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, jazz community is a very nice one because mistake is not the word you're using. It's every time you're eating a note that you're not expecting to eat, that's a door opening on a new universe because you can go somewhere else because maybe that note is coming from the source. You were just playing routine and then boof, something is coming and it's an evolutionary force to make you decide something.
So you are just the vehicle, something passes through you.
Yeah, but you have to keep the vehicle, well in shape. And so that's the purpose, I think. Keep it in shape. Not only the body, I'm talking about, of course, the heart and the mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I once interviewed Michael Brecker, who had a reputation for practicing all the time. I mean, just hours and hours a day. Yeah. And I once said to him, I said, he's such a great musician. I said, "Michael, what do you need to practice so much for?" He said, "Because I have to be there when it comes through."
Wow. I love it. Yeah. I didn't know that one. I really love it.
Yeah. So why don't you play something for us, just to give our listeners an idea of what you do?
So I'll play for you a composition of mine. It's called Il Barbone di Siviglia.
Beautiful. What's that called again?
Il Barbone di Siviglia. It's a word game between, Il Barbiere di Siviglia, barber from Sevilla. But Barbone means hobo, the hobo from Sevilla.
Yeah. Okay. So you got a barber and a hobo.
A barber and a hobo, yeah.
So you have played with a number of, in addition to your work with Italian pop rock artists, you've played with a number of musicians. You played with Gatto Barbieri.
Yeah, that was nice. We had a quintet. We had a tour because Enrico Rava, Aldo Romano, and Gatto were close friends in the 60s, having a quintet together in Europe. And it was a kind of reunion with me and Rosario Bonacorso on bass, and we had some concerts. That was interesting. Gatto was a really sweet guy, a very weird guy, very particular guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw Gatto. Oh man, I first discovered him when he came to America in the late '60s, and then he did. I guess the thing that brought him to fame was writing the soundtrack to the movie Last Tango in Paris.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was worldwide famous for that. From that moment on. Yeah.
I love that. Love that music. So you've done 43 albums.
Yeah, I'm not sleeping that much, Brett.
That's a lot. You're very prolific. Why so many?
I don't know. I have no idea. I love doing what I do, so I'm always composing or writing books or having a TV show, a radio show, everything which has to do with communication.
Now, when you say you've done radio and TV shows, you've done the music, you've had your own show. What is that?
I had my own show. I had my own show on TV and on the radio with other guys. Yeah, where I'm a host, so I have a lot of guests, musicians from all kinds of music playing with me. I had a lot of jazz musicians. I had Richard Galliano came, and Concha Buica, David Garrett, the violin player, Cameron Carpenter, an organist from England, Anat Cohen, Hamilton Giolanda, who else? A lot of musicians, not only Italians, so international musicians, and we are jamming together, and then we are talking a little bit or talk about the music. It's a kind of infotainment, they call it in Italy, with a very bad word, which means that you are trying to inform people while entertain them. Which sounds strange.
No, it doesn't sound strange at all. I think what that does is people who might not know you watch your show, they become familiar with who you are. They're more likely to go and say, "I got to buy his album. Let me check him out."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's
so, one thing that I found very interesting is that jazz musicians have always had a home in Europe on European television. We have a lot of videos on YouTube from Italian TV where musicians play really good. This is something that doesn't happen in America, sadly. It's a little bit different now because of the internet. But in the old days, with broadcast TV, it was rare that you would see jazz on TV. But I'm under the impression that jazz has been a pretty welcome visitor on Italian TV. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. It happened, but it's not always like that. We had our highlights. We had people in the 60s making shows with big orchestras and with great singers and with a jazz piano player talking to the people. His name was Lelio Luttazzi. And then we had something else in the 70s with Franco Cerri, which is a great jazz guitar player from Milano. He had a show too. So I'm coming as the last one of a line of musicians, but as you can understand from my speech, it's one or two shows in a decade of television. They are very well made, but they're not enough, really, for music fans.
Well, thankfully we have the internet now and people can watch jazz on YouTube.
Exactly. That's a good thing about the internet.
That's a beautiful thing.
They got a lot of information. So they have no excuse. A young musician has got no excuse to say, "Oh, I didn't know that guy. Oh, I didn't know that kind of music. How can I listen to some good music even if I'm living in a small town in Italy? You know, no excuse. Now you can just go and grow up and become a great musician.
Well, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's always been like that.
You know, one of the things about jazz, the jazz repertoire, is something called the Great American Songbook. For many years, we had music coming from films and from plays, and those became standards. And people like Bill Evans took those songs, made them his own, and they became jazz in a way. Now, your new recording, which is Piano Variations on Jesus Christ Superstar, utilizes music from the original Broadway show by Andrew Lloyd Webber. The music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, is not something that's been utilized by a lot of musicians. Why were you drawn to the music of that particular show?
You know, actually, Andrew Lloyd Webber doesn't really like people improvising on his music and doesn't really like people reharmonizing his melodies. So that's a main reason for not having so many jazz musicians performing his music. You know, you get to ask permission. And I have to say really thanks to him and his publisher, because they gave me the permission before listening to the recording. So I asked the permission before even starting, because I knew he could say no easily. So we asked for the permission, I got the permission, and I started working on the material. But actually, the time I was really starting working on the material was when I was 14 years old, because I saw the movie for the first time and I fell in love with the music. And also with the story, I was deeply Catholic at the time, so the story wasn't new for me. But the newest thing to me was that I was feeling empathy for Judas. That was the main thing. I mean, that's news, man. Judas is the evil guy, but I'm feeling empathy. I can understand his feelings. I can be moved by his feelings and by his death. So that was an explosion for me. And today, I still think that the main thing about Jesus Christ Superstar is the emotions of the characters, because they're talking about how we do relate to truth, light, and cosmic love, because this is what Jesus is about in this story, in the myth. This is an incredible myth talking about the truth. And Mary Magdalene in the story is the only one who embraces the truth, even not knowing how to love the truth, how to love the light, but she embraces the truth. And nowadays, that's the character moving me. Yeah, Mary Magdalene.
So why did you decide to do it as a solo piano recording?
Just, you know, the original one is full of informations. It's symphonic orchestra, the chorus, and rock singers. In the original recording of 1970, it's Jan Gillan from Deep Purple singing the Jesus part. They had the band, the Joe Cocker band, playing in the record, because they were not on tour at the time, so they spent time in studio working with Andrew Lloyd Webber. And it was packed with information, the structure, the story, the lyrics. So I wanted to give a naked version, just the melodies. I just kept the structure because it's a formidable, incredible narration.
But you do a little singing on the recording as well.
Yeah, I did. That was just the last song. I wanted to sing that song, and I kept it as intimate as possible. I thought about Judas whispering in Jesus' ear.
Wow. So when did you record it?
I recorded in November in Rome, and now I'm having concerts, and I'm keeping the structure of the opera, but then I'm changing the details. I'm improvising inside the structure.
Okay, well, before we talk about doing some live performances, could you play us one of the tracks from the recording?
Yeah, of course. I'll play for you the first song of a rock opera. It's Heaven on Their Minds. It's by Judas.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
nice. So what you've done is you've taken the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber and you've really made it your own.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's what
has he?
happens all the time when you take music from another composer, but sometimes you feel it. Yeah.
So has he heard the recording? You said that you had to get his permission. He doesn't like improvisation with his music.
Yeah, exactly. But I have no news about him hearing the recording. I'm waiting. I'm looking forward for news from him.
Well, he's a very successful man, Andrew Lloyd Webber. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, he is.
So how do you when you want to? How do you get in touch with someone like that? Do you just go through his manager? Did you write him
Yeah,
a letter?
yeah. You take the formal path, absolutely. Because I never met the guy. I don't know him, unfortunately, and I never met him in person. So it was a formal path through his publisher, and the publisher talked to him, and the answer came from the publisher. Yeah.
Okay.
I sent some examples. I sent some of my playing the Beatles or playing a James Brown tune, so he could get an idea of the level of freedom that I'm using. Yeah.
You mentioned the magic word, the Beatles. Can you
Yeah.
play one? Can you please play a Beatles song for me?
Yeah. Whatever. Okay, I'll go for the first one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Here, there, and everywhere.
Yes.
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
So you make this record, which sounds wonderful, and suddenly we're in the pandemic. Where suddenly very few, hardly anybody can appear. You tell me talk to me about the concerts you're doing. How does that work now?
Well, actually, the thing is, I had to think about that actually because the coincidence was interesting, and I have to think that I came to the conclusion by now that our relation with the unknown is also pictured in Jesus Christ Superstar, because Jesus is also the mystery of life. And I have to say this situation is such a mystery because it's something that is supposed to change our attitudes. But I think that if we use it, this is an evolutionary force and which can change our world for better. If we use it, of course, if we surf on that, if we decide to fight against it, and or just be still, I think we won't survive. but the ones who are going to survive are going to change a lot. And I think it's going to be a great change in politics, in economics, in the arts, in life. Everybody experimented with wheel of change that the world is, the universe is telling us about. That's my idea.
Certainly, it's affecting just about everyone on the planet. So there is going to be a tremendous amount of change.
Yeah.
But in terms of the space we're in right now, a lot of people are doing live streaming concerts from their houses, from their studios. But in terms of performing live, what are you doing? Are you doing solo piano concerts? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, actually, I'm having some concerts. I had some Instagram gigs during the Italian lockdown in April, but now I'm playing. Yeah, I'm having one gig a week, which is good. I usually play a lot. I usually play 4 days in a week, but this is okay. We are starting, you know. We got, of course, 1/3 of the audience outside, sorry. These are outdoor concerts. But we inside the place, inside the venue, it's just 1/3 of the audience. So you get to adjust a lot of things, but we are managing to go on.
Yeah, well, it's times like these that people need music more than ever. Music is a healing force, and many of us need to be healed. So what type of response do you get when you play these concerts now?
I've had 3 gigs with Jesus Christ Superstar. What I get is people is talking about sweetness at the end of a gig, which is news for me. Usually they're talking about other things. Sweetness means that they were touched in a sweet way, which is good. I think the music by Andrew Lloyd Webber is exactly trying to get you there, to get you moved. So if even with my improvisations, the music is still moving, that sounds great to me. I think it's the best thing because, as you said, music has a healing quality. Mainly because mainly it's a language of communication and a healing thing. Then it developed into a thing we call arts. And then nowadays you got one guy playing the piano and the other ones are applauding. But music was born to perform all together and to feel all together and to be healed.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask our viewers, we got a bunch of people out there from all over the world.
Yeah.
If you have questions, please either put them on Facebook or on YouTube, and I'll be glad to ask Stefano, get a response for you. So the concerts that you've done, are they strictly in Italy?
Yeah. I'm going to Amsterdam in September, but it's not easy to travel, as you know. So that's the only thing I got by now. Abroad. That's the only thing abroad, yeah.
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, Italy was hit very, very hard.
Yeah.
And you guys got through it. What's the situation over there now? Is the virus kind of calmed down a bit, or is the numbers still going up?
Yeah, it's going down. It's going down. So now we are looking for the end of the tunnel, but we are seeing the end of the tunnel. We still have problems with the school and the culture. The culture is a big problem because if we still go on having just 1/3 of the audience for the whole season, that's going to be difficult, economically difficult for the theaters mainly, not for the musicians, for the theaters and all the guys involved in theaters, so the promoters, the managers, the technicians, and the audience too. So that's the main problem we are trying to discuss here in Italy. But talking about deaths and the hospitals are getting better, so hospitals now are not so crowded as they were at the beginning of this thing.
Well, what's happening in the United States, in New York City, is that musicians are doing outdoor concerts on the street. I mean, They were literally just set up and start to play. And of course, people absolutely love it. It's, music is for the soul and people need to be healed. And so, I think that this is a very important contribution at this time. I wanted to ask you, before the pandemic, before this thing started, what kinds of venues do you play? Do you play like clubs? Do you play concert halls? Where do you play your music?
Everywhere. My ideal week is playing in a big venue as the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, and then having a small club with a trio, and then having a solo concert in an Italian theater with a great acoustics, and then maybe a pop stage with a rock band. So I want to change all the time.
So you like playing different things at different times.
Yes, because also, I like to play with the spaces too. So if I'm playing in a kind of venue, of course my music is going to be different because I'm playing with the situation, with the vibe.
Yeah. Now, in listening to some of your stuff, I know that you did a recording with João Bosco, Catano Valiso. How did you get into Brazilian music?
I started listening to Brazilian music with the Stan Getz and Jorge Gilberto album, which I know you're a fan of. And then I discovered Caetano, Gilberto Gil, Chico Buarque, all these great composers. Then my first trip to Brazil in 2007 made me know a lot of Brazilian musicians. I started recording with them, especially with my good friend Hamilton de Holanda, who plays the mandolin, the Brazilian mandolin. And from that moment on, Brazil is a very joyful place to be, and the musicians are very, how do you say that?
Soulful?
Soulful, thank you very much. And joyful, so it's easy to meet them. All these guys, they are great stars. João Bosco, Chico, Caetano, they're great stars, and you could imagine they live in a golden cage, but you can just talk to them and have a drink with them, and they're nice people, especially with musicians, because they love music. So they are not just, employing musicians. They love musicians.
Yeah. One of my favorite Brazilian musicians, I want to give you his name, see what your thoughts are. Hermeto Pascoal.
Oh, I love Hermeto. Absolutely love it. There's a Chorinho pra ele, questa. Of course, in the ending, he goes like. Etc., etc. I love the attitude of Hermeto. I love his records. I love everything about him.
Yeah. We have a question here from Ketamorph. He wants to know, how is working with Funk Off and Banda Osiris?
Osiris. These are two Italian bands, and Funk Off is a marching street band, actually. A very good one. They are always there at Umbria Jazz. If you ever go there, Brett, you will see Funk Off playing in the streets. They're very good, playing funk music. And Banda Osiris is a kind of theater, musical theater actor. They are 4 musicians, but they are also performers, actors, and they are doing very funny stuff. It's almost like, you probably remember Victor Borge, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of thing, but in 4 guys, with different instruments. And I had a very good time with them because we had a show where they were faking my story. So they were telling the story of this Stefano Bollani to the audience, and everything was fake, and we had a lot of fun writing this thing. And Funk Off is a fantastic band because it's full of energy. So 2 great experiences. Grazie per la domanda. Thanks for the question.
You mentioned, oops, my mind just went off there. Let me go back to something else. Have you done any scoring, any film scores or TV scores?
No, but I want to do it. Not really. No, I did something with documentary, but I'm a movie fan actually, so I would love to.
Who are your favorite filmmakers?
I have a favorite one above all, which is a Danish guy named Anders Thomas Jensen. He's the guy who made this Adam's Apple. Maybe you saw this movie, but he made 4 movies, and he's also writing the scripts for a lot of other people in Hollywood and in Denmark. And I think he's a genius. I love the atmosphere. I love the characters. I love everything. Yeah, that's an example, but I love a lot of different movie makers.
Well, I must tell you, I'm a filmmaker myself. One of my
Opa!
early influences and one of the greatest filmmakers is Federico Fellini.
I guess so. Yeah. Eccolo qua. But it's the most charming melody ever for me. It's Amarcord by Nino Rota. It's from that movie by Fellini.
Yes.
And it's a surprising melody.
Yeah, Nino Rota was a fantastic composer. In America, he did the music for The Godfather.
Yeah.
And another Italian composer who had a big influence is Morricone.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, they did some, because a good soundtrack makes a movie better.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's one of the elements that really adds to it. So you've had a remarkable life, my friend. You've done different types of music. What haven't you done that you still would like to do while you're in this world?
Actually, you hit the right note just before. I want to write a soundtrack for movies. That's what I would love to do. And then, of course, I got other projects, but I'm working on that. And I wanna be a movie composer.
Yeah.
So as soon as you need some music, let me know.
Okay, well, I might take you up on that. The film I'm
Yes.
working on right now, they're going to need some music.
Yeah.
So we burned through an hour here. Why don't we go out? Could you play one more selection from Jesus Christ Superstar, please?
Yes. I'll play for you the King Herod song. Let me see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Opa.
So after today, I think some people are going to want to go out and get more of your music. In addition to the piano variations on Jesus Christ Superstar, excuse me, which of your recordings would you like people to check out?
Oh, that's always hard. Just check out the K-Bomb. It's the latest one before Piano Variations of Jesus Christ. Because as you know, musicians always are in love with the latest ones. But yeah, that's what I would suggest. K-Bomb. It's a Brazilian recording, the one you were talking about with Caetano and João Bosco.
Yeah, that's it's magic to record with collaborators like that.
Yeah.
Stefano, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's a joy to know you and to hear your music, and I'm gonna go and listen to it more. And one day I'm gonna come to Italy and I'm gonna knock on your door.
You should definitely come to Italy as soon as you can. Grazie.
Okay.
Thank you, Brett. It was really a pleasure being with you.
Okay.
Really, and meeting you.
And thanks everyone for checking us out today. Tomorrow, my guest will be Mike Abeni, who played with Maynard Ferguson and is a fantastic arranger and composer. And please stay safe, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, same time,